Again, it's a rich thing.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Python Advanced Programming tutorial series. In today's video, we're going to talk about argument parsing in Python. So let us get right into it. Alright, so let us talk about argument parsing. Now, this is a very important concept, especially if you're getting into systems programming, if you're developing networking scripts that are going to be executed on the command line. Essentially, every script that you're going to use in the command line needs to be able to parse arguments, as long, of course, as you want it to have arguments. But let's look at an example here. Let's say we have this Python script called myscript.py, and this Python script has a certain functionality. Now, some scripts are not going to need parameters because just they work on their own, they're interactive, they're just launching something, so they don't need any parameters, any optional arguments. We just have the script itself, and we can call it using Python 3 myscript.py, and it's done. But sometimes you want to have parameters. So let's say myscript.py, what it does is it takes the text hello world and it writes it into a file that we have to specify here. So we call myscript.py, and after that we want to specify a file name. So a concrete command would be in Linux Python 3 myscript.py, and then, I don't know, result.txt. We want to have it like that. So this is not something that we input in the Python script or into the Python script at runtime with the input method, or input function, but we're actually passing the parameters, the arguments in the console, in the terminal. And maybe we can also have something like, before we do that, we can say -o is the output file, so we can say test.txt. Then we can say, okay, I want to have a certain logger, I don't know, or logging level has to be debug, and then I want to have, I don't know, just a tag for case sensitive, so -c, just some random example here that I'm talking about. But this is something that we need to know how to do in Python, and on this channel I haven't talked about it yet, so we're going to talk about this. But before we do that, I want to mention something that's kind of related, and it's the args and keywords, or args and quarks, or arguments and keyword arguments, parameters and functions. We talked about this, I think, in the first video already, or actually in the decorators video, so in the second video of the series, that some functions can have args and keyword arguments. So let's say I have my function here. This is just a very simple thing, and I think I've already talked about this in the Python tips and tricks tutorial series. But essentially you have 1 star in args and 2 stars in keyword args, and this is how you essentially have a variable amount of parameters, of named parameters and just positional parameters. So I can go ahead and say print args 0, and I can do this for a bunch of different numbers here. Now in C you would also have something like argc, which is the argument count. So this would also be helpful here to know how many arguments were passed. However, we're just going to pass 4 here, and then we're going to say print quarks, and quarks is a dictionary. So here we have to specify names. Let's just call it key 1 and maybe key 2, like that. And now if I call the function, even though the function doesn't have a defined signature of how many parameters I have to pass here, I can just pass a string hey, I can pass a boolean true, I can pass a number 19, and I can pass another string wow, and then I can go ahead and say key 1 equals test, key 2 equals 7, or something like that. And if I run this function right now, so let's just split the terminal again real quick, dash py directory neural9, there you go, python 3 main.py. What happens here? Doesn't it work? Should work though. Why doesn't it work? Are we executing the right file? Should be. Oh, I have a syntax error here, I think. Now it should probably work. There you go. Hey, true, 19, wow, test 7. Now, of course, if I skip on one of those, so for example, if I don't do this, and I say delete this keyword here, oh, sorry, then I can, of course, I will, of course, get an error message because I'm accessing something that doesn't exist. So in this case, key error, key1 doesn't exist, so I would have to check for it. But essentially, we use this in the wrappers, in the decorators, that we can just pass all the parameters we want. Of course, we need to check if they're valid, but we can pass whatever we want into args and keyword arguments. This is just something I want to mention here because it's in some sort also argument parsing, even though it's not the same as the argument parsing that we're going to talk about, but I think this fits into that video. Alright, so now let us talk about the actual argument parsing, and for this we need to import the sys module. And for those of you who have already coded with C, you know that the C function has an integer, argc, and then a character array, or pointer, argv. So for those of you who know C, the argv, the arguments vector in C, is the same in Python. So for those of you who know it, it's nothing new to learn here. For those of you who have not coded in C or C++, there is something called the argument vector, so sys.argv, and it's a list, and we can use indices here to address the individual arguments that were passed. Now, the index 0 is always the file name itself, or the script name, or the program name. So in this case, it would be main.py. And then 1, 2, 3, and so on are the positional arguments after that. So let's just run a test here and say print sys.argv0, and then also print 1. And then we can just go ahead and say Python 3 main.py, and I can pass the string test now. And you can see that I get main.py and test. Now, if I don't pass anything here, so if I just say main.py, we're going to get index error because we don't have anything in there. However, I can also go ahead and just print the whole argument vector if I'm interested in the whole thing and not just in a particular position. So I can print the whole list. And you can see that we're not going to be limited at all. So I can say test, hello, world, etc. And you will see that we have all those positional arguments separated by a blank. Now, if I want to have a blank, I would have to specify a backslash for the escape characters. So I would have to say main.py, and then I can say, for example, hello, backslash, space, world, and then new. And you can see that hello world is now one string and new is another string. So this is how we can process the argument vectors. So let's just run through a quick example here. Let's say we want to have a file name, and the file name is just going to be the sys.argv at position 1, and the usage of our program is going to be usage Python 3, or actually we don't need to specify Python 3, main.py, and then file name, like that. And here we're just going to say with open file name in writing mode as f.write. We can also specify actually that we want to write the second thing. So we can say message equals sysargv2, and then we can say that we want to write the message here into the file. Now, if I want to run this, you will see I will now run test.txt is going to be the file, and the content is going to be hello \world, like that. So we should now have a new file here, and you can see it's hello world. So as you can see, this works. You just have to specify the position. If you want to know how many positions there are, obviously in Python this is quite simple. Just use the length function here, and you don't need to have a special argument counter or something like that. You just say length, and then you can go through all the individual arguments. All right, now for the optional arguments, for the opt args, we need to have flags. So we need to say something like -p for a port. For example, if we're having a network script, we want to specify the port, we say main py -p 8080. And those are optional. That's why they're called opt args, because they're not required. We can specify them if we want to. So we can say -p that, -h is the host, so localhost, for example, and so on. And in order to use those optional arguments, we need to import getopt. It's also a standard core Python library. And here we can specify a string. So let's first delete all of those. We can specify a string here that allows us to say, okay, what kind of optional arguments do we want to accept, and do we have to, are they just flags, or do we have to also process the next argument after that tag? So what I mean by that is we need to say, I think the convention is opts and args. So we get two results here. So opts and args equals getOpt dot getOpt. And what we do here is we specify, first of all, what do we take as an input string, and we want to take everything after the file name. So we need to say sys.argv, everything except the first one, like that. And then we have to specify the string. So the string means essentially what are we waiting for. And in this case, we're just going to say f colon and m colon. So we want to have a file name and then the message that we want to write into that. Those are optional parameters, so we can execute the script with default values as well. We can do it like that. Now the colon essentially means that we're expecting an input after the tag. So if I say -f, I also need to specify a file name. If I say -m, I also specify a message. If I say let's just add another one here, like, I don't know, t or something like that. If I say t and don't add a colon after that, we don't expect anything after that t. For now, we're just going to say file and message. And now what we do here is we have, actually we can also pass long opt here, file name and message. And then we can just go ahead and print the results here to see what we get. So we can say print opts, and we can say print args. And let's just, or actually this was fine. Let's go with text hello world again. And you can see that the opts are empty and the args are test.txt and hello world, because we didn't provide any opts here. So we can go ahead and say minus -f and -m. And you can see that we now have a key value pair here. So those down here are actually the positional arguments, and here we have the tag arguments, the opt arguments. So -f is text.txt, -m is hello world. Now, of course, this will also be the same if I say, if I first say -m is hello world, and then -f is text, so -m hello world. Why do I have a bug here? Let's see if it works. Yeah, as you can see, I mean, kind of, I think that's a bug from my command line here, but you can see that we have the same key value pairs. So if I'm interested in the file name, you know, I could go ahead and say, that's usually how I do it in C. I have a trigger or a flag where I say, okay, this is the F flag, and the F flag means that F was passed, and the M flag means that M was passed, so I know that I have to work with those. And what I can do here essentially is I can also, let's get rid of that. Let's say opts -m, like that. And you would see what I get as a result then. Must be integers or slices. Oh, I think, oh yeah, of course, because we have a key value pair. So actually we need to go with opt. So we need to go with for opt and arg in opts. And we can say if opt equals -f, then I can say file name equals arg. Then if opt equals m, message equals arg. And yeah, the rest is not that important. And then I can say with open file name message, oh, not message, sorry, write plus sf f.write message. Now I can also go ahead and specify default values here. So I can say file name equals test.txt and message equals hello, like that. And we can see the result here. If I do it like that, we're going to write into test.txt, we're going to have hello world. Whereas, let me just close that. Whereas if I have the default values here, so if I just run the script here, like that. We're also going to write something into test.txt, but it's going to be just hello. And of course, this is true for the file type, file name. So we can pass a file name with -f. We can also let the file name to be the default one and just pass -m. So those are optional parameters, but this is how you parse get opts or opt args in Python. So that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video, and bye.